It weighs as much as a full-grown Labrador. Its engine displaces more than a motorcycle's, and when it bites into a 200-year-old redwood, the whole forest floor trembles. These aren't garden tools. They're machines engineered to survive falling timber, frozen winters, and decades of brutal abuse without ever quitting. From a 137cc monster that loggers still hunt down today, to the 128-pound beast that started it all back in 1927, these are the 10 toughest chainsaws ever built. Let's cut in. Number 10. Makita EA7900. Dolmar PS-7900. We start with a saw that hides a secret. The Makita EA7900 and the Dolmar PS-7900 look like two different chainsaws. One wears Makita blue, the other Dolmar red. But pop the covers and you'll find they are literally the same machine. Same parts, same castings, same DNA. That's because Makita owns Dolmar, and Dolmar happens to be the oldest chainsaw brand on the planet. So when you pick up this 79cc powerhead, you're holding nearly a century of forestry engineering. On paper, the numbers are almost modest for this list. The engine displaces 78.5 cc and pumps out around 6.2 horsepower, spinning to over 13,000 RPM. But raw displacement was never the point of this saw. The point is the power-to-weight ratio. The bare powerhead tips the scales at roughly 13.6 pounds, astonishingly light for the grunt it delivers. That means a professional can run it all day, buck log after log, and not feel like they've been fighting the tool by lunchtime. What earns it a spot on a toughest list isn't just the power. It's the way it's built to shrug off punishment. Later versions came with a heavy-duty air filtration system engineered for extended filter life, so the engine keeps breathing clean even in choking sawdust and dry summer dust. There's a slide-out cold weather baffle for running in brutal winter conditions, and a 2-point inertia and mechanical chain brake for safety when things go wrong. Ask working arborists and millers about this saw and you'll hear the same word again and again: reliable. It's the kind of machine people run for 15 years and swear they'll never replace. It doesn't have the biggest engine here, but it might be the smartest. Proof that toughness isn't only about size. Sometimes it's about a saw that simply refuses to break. Number 9. Husqvarna 288 XP. If you spend any time around old-school loggers, one saw comes up in almost every "they don't make 'em like they used to" conversation. The Husqvarna 288 XP. Built primarily between 1988 and 2001 for the North American, European, and UK markets, this 87cc Swedish workhorse developed a reputation for being nearly indestructible, the kind of saw you pass down to your kids. The heart of that reputation is what's inside the crankcase. The 288 XP was built with a magnesium crankcase designed to survive sustained high RPM, wrapped around a forged 3-piece crankshaft. That's a genuinely industrial-grade bottom end. The sort of construction that lets an engine run wide open day after day for years without grenading itself. The 2-stroke engine produces about 6.1 horsepower and revs to 9,300 RPM, and it happily swings bars from 18 all the way out to 28 inches. Now, it's not perfect, and honest fans will tell you so. By modern standards, the 288 XP is heavy for its power. Newer saws deliver similar grunt in a lighter package. But that extra mass is part of why it lasts. It was overbuilt, and overbuilt tools survive. Here's the detail that really proves the legend, though. In markets with strict emissions and safety rules, production ended around 2001. But the 288 XP was so good and so beloved that Husqvarna kept building it for countries like Brazil and Malaysia long after. The demand simply never died. Aftermarket companies even clone the thing, which in the tool world is the ultimate compliment. You only copy a saw people are still desperate to own. Find a well-kept 288 XP today, and it commands serious money on the used market. Owners describe running them for a decade and a half without a single real problem. In a world of disposable gear, the 288 XP is a monument to the idea that a chainsaw could be a lifetime investment. That's toughness you can hand down. Number 8. Husqvarna 395 XP. Sitting a notch above its older sibling is the Husqvarna 395 XP, a saw that took everything great about Husqvarna's professional line and scaled it up into a serious hardwood and milling brute. This one runs a 94cc engine, producing somewhere in the range of 6.6 to 7.1 horsepower depending on the source and configuration, and it's designed from the ground up to be worked hard for hours at a time. Like the 288 before it, the 395 XP is built around a magnesium crankcase and a 3-piece crankshaft. That same durable, high RPM tolerant foundation that professionals trust. But Husqvarna packed it with features aimed squarely at longevity. There's the air injection system, a centrifugal air cleaning setup that flings the big dust and debris particles out before they ever reach the air filter. That means fewer filter cleanings, longer filter life, and an engine that stays healthier over the long haul. There's X-Torque technology to cut fuel use and emissions, an adjustable flow oil pump, and a quick-release air filter to slash downtime. Weighing around 17.4 pounds without cutting gear, it swings bars from 20 up to 36 inches, which makes it a favorite not just for felling, but for chainsaw milling, where a saw is buried in a cut for minutes on end, generating enormous heat and strain. That's arguably the single most punishing thing you can ask a chainsaw to do, and the 395 XP thrives at it. The 395 XP also enjoyed a long production run, which tells its own story. When a professional saw stays in the catalog for years and years, it's because it works and it sells. Owners routinely report running theirs for well over a decade with zero major issues. One common refrain is simply, "My 395 is an absolute beast." It's not the flashiest saw on this list, and it's not the biggest, but for a machine that combines real power with legendary durability in a package one person can actually control all day, the 395 XP has earned its stripes many times over. Number 7. McCulloch Super Pro 125. Now we cross the Atlantic and go back in time to an era when American saws ruled the logging camps of the Pacific Northwest. And no name from that golden age is more legendary than McCulloch, and no McCulloch is more revered than the Super Pro 125. This is a genuine muscle saw. The Super Pro 125, built through the 1970s, packs a 123cc engine into a raw, mechanical, no-nonsense package. In stock form, it produced serious grunt, and enthusiasts who've built race motors around the 125 platform have pushed them toward 12 horsepower and beyond, feeding bars over 30 inches long with big .404 chisel chain. This was a saw for felling giants and cutting board feet by the truckload, back when fallers were paid by the amount of timber they put on the ground. The construction was pure heavy metal Americana. Depending on the year, you'd find an iron or chrome cylinder bore, a wraparound handle, an automatic chain oiler, a quick-release air filter, and a decompression valve to make the beast easier to start. From 1975 onward, McCulloch advertised a chain brake on their saws, though plenty of old-timers promptly took them off. It was rugged, repairable, and built like farm equipment. Ask the loggers who ran them, and you'll hear near worship. One man's father called it the best damn saw McCulloch ever made, and he was cutting big timber in the era of the giants, running his 125 alongside a Stihl MS fitted with a 78-inch bar for the truly massive trunks. He wore that Super Pro out doing real work and still speaks of it with reverence decades later. Today, these saws are treasure. Genuine Super Pro 125 are notoriously hard to find, and clean examples change hands for hundreds of dollars. Even non-running part saws get fought over on auction sites. They're heavy, they're loud, they vibrate like a jackhammer, and they represent an age when toughness was the entire design brief. The Super Pro 125 didn't just survive the logging camps, it defined them. Number 6. Homelite Super 2100. McCulloch wasn't the only American giant, and to leave out its great rival would be a crime. So at number 6 we have the Homelite Super 2100, a hulking one-man saw from the company that helped put a chainsaw in every serious logger's hands. Built by the Homelite Corporation out of Port Chester, New York, the Super 2100 carried a big 114cc single-cylinder engine turning around 6,000 RPM. This was Homelite's answer to the largest saws of its day, a machine built for the heaviest felling and bucking work in the American woods. In the mid-century logging boom, Homelites and McCullochs were the Stihl and Husqvarna of their generation, the saws that showed up on every job site, in every truck, in every camp. What made the Homelites tough was old-fashioned overbuilding. The bodies were cast from die-cast magnesium, light for the strength and corrosion-resistant. They used direct drive and centrifugal clutches, simple systems with fewer things to fail, and they were designed to be worked on in the field with basic tools, which mattered enormously when your saw broke down miles from the nearest road and you still had a quota to hit. The reputation for endurance is backed up by the people who actually use them. Collectors talk about Homelite owners running the same big frame saws almost daily for over 30 years, swinging bars up to 5 feet long with big drive sprockets and pulling enormous power out of these old engines. That's not a saw you baby, that's a saw you abuse for a living, and it keeps coming back for more. Homelite as a brand eventually shifted toward the homeowner market and faded from the professional world, which is part of what makes these old giants so poignant. They represent a lost era of American manufacturing muscle. The Super 2100 and its big block siblings weren't refined, they weren't quiet, and they certainly weren't light, but they were tanks, and half a century later, plenty of them still run. That is the truest test of toughness there is. Number 5. Stihl MS 660 066 Magnum. If there's one saw on this list that living, working professionals still swing every single day, it's this one. The Stihl MS 660 and its earlier incarnation, the legendary 066 Magnum, is quite possibly the most beloved professional chainsaw ever made, and it earned that love the hard way by never letting anyone down. At its core is a 91.6cc engine, producing around 7 horsepower, wrapped in tough magnesium construction that puts it in a completely different league from the plastic-bodied homeowner saws. Stihl themselves described it as having one of the best power-to-weight ratios of any saw in the industry. And to prove it, they made it the legendary saw of the Stihl Timber Sports Series, the world's premier competitive logging sport, where saws are pushed to their absolute mechanical limits in front of crowds. The 066 Magnum arrived in the late 1990s and immediately became a fixture in the arborist and logging worlds. Then came the MS 660 and later the MS 661, but the DNA never changed because it never needed to. This is a saw famous for one thing above all: it just keeps running. Loggers describe the 066 as a reliable workhorse that provides consistent performance week after week, capable of withstanding continuous use without faltering. Owners report felling oaks over 36 inches across and powering straight through the cut without the engine ever bogging down. Part of the magic is simplicity. The MS 660 and 61 use a proven, non-electronic design. Nothing fancy to fail, easy to maintain, easy to repair. It's got the Stihl anti-vibration system to fight operator fatigue on long days, and it'll pull bars long enough to tackle serious timber. It's powerful enough for the big jobs, light enough to run all day, and tough enough to do it for years. Ask 100 professional cutters to name the greatest all-around chainsaw ever built, and a huge share of them will land on the 660. It isn't the biggest engine here, and it isn't the rarest. It's simply the one that shows up, does the work, and outlasts everything around it. That's why it's number 5. Number 4. Husqvarna 3120 XP. Now the engines start getting truly monstrous. At number 4 is the Husqvarna 3120 XP, the biggest chainsaw Husqvarna makes, and one of the largest production saws you can actually walk into a dealer and buy today. This is a genuine giant. The two-stroke engine displaces a colossal 118.8 cc and delivers around 8.3 horsepower at 9,000 RPM, with a maximum torque of roughly 7.7 Newton-meters. To put that in perspective, Husqvarna's wildly popular 455 Rancher, the saw sitting in countless garages, runs a 55.5 cc engine. The 3120 XP is more than double that. This is not a homeowner tool. It's a purpose-built machine for felling and bucking the largest trees on Earth. The 3120 XP is designed to swing enormous cutting equipment. It runs big, aggressive .404-inch pitch chain, and while Husqvarna recommends bars in the 24 to 42-inch range for general use, this saw has the muscle to drive far longer bars for the truly massive stuff. The powerhead alone weighs around 22.9 pounds. This is a two-hands plant your feet, respect the machine kind of saw. What lands it at number 4 rather than higher is a combination of sheer capability and a slightly tougher time being handled all day, because at this size, physics starts winning. The saw is heavy, it's thirsty, and running it takes real strength and stamina. But that's exactly the point of a saw like this. Nobody buys a 3120 XP to trim hedges. They buy it because they're staring down a trunk that would laugh at a smaller saw, and they need something that will simply overpower the wood. Because it's a current in production model, the 3120 XP is also a rare thing on this list. A modern saw available new that still belongs in the same conversation as the vintage legends. It carries Husqvarna's professional durability features and the power-to-weight engineering the brand is known for, just scaled up to its absolute maximum. When Husqvarna needs to answer the question, how big can we go, the 3120 XP is the answer. And it's a very loud one. Number 3. Stihl MS 880 Magnums. For decades, if you asked what the most powerful production chainsaw in the world was, one saw won the argument: the Stihl MS 880 Magnum. This is the modern king of the Stihl range, and a machine so capable it borders on absurd. The numbers are staggering. The MS 880 runs a 121.6cc engine producing 6.4 kilowatts. That's 8.6 brake horsepower, from a saw a single person can carry. Stihl's own literature has billed it as the most powerful series-produced chainsaw in the world, and it delivers a roughly 23% increase in engine power over the already heavy-duty MS 660 we saw at number 5. The powerhead weighs around 22 pounds, and here's the truly wild part. It will accept guide bars up to 59 inches long. That's almost 5 full feet of cutting power on a single machine. Despite that immense output, Stihl engineered it to remain, in their words, precision-balanced and surprisingly nimble for its class. A saw with a great power-to-weight ratio in spite of its raw size. It's loaded with pro features, a decompression valve and Stihl's Elasto-Start shock-absorbing starter handle to make firing up a saw this big actually manageable, plus the anti-vibration system to reduce fatigue during those grinding, all-day cuts through huge diameter timber. The MS 880 is the tool professionals reach for when the job would make lesser saws whimper. Ancient giants, storm-shattered megatrunks, industrial land clearing. It's the saw you carry when your normal professional saw suddenly feels like a toy. It's also been used as a benchmark. Other manufacturers measure their heavyweight saws against it. Today, the MS 880 has been succeeded by the nearly identical MS 881, which carries the same displacement forward with refinements for modern emissions rules and even better handling. But the 880 is the one that built the legend, the saw that spent years wearing the crown of most powerful you can buy. For raw, usable, one-person cutting power, almost nothing in production has ever touched it, and that puts it firmly at number 3. Number 2. Dolmar Model A 1927. To find the second toughest chainsaw ever built, we have to go all the way back to the very beginning, to 1927, to a wooded hillside in Germany, and to the machine that started this entire industry. In 1927, a German engineer and businessman named Emil Lerp built and demonstrated the world's first mass-produced portable gasoline chainsaw on the slopes of a hill called Dolmar in the Thuringian forest. He was so taken with the location, a place he'd loved since childhood, that when his wife suggested naming the saw after it, the name stuck and it eventually became the name of his entire company, Dolmar, the oldest chainsaw brand in the world, and the one that nearly a century later lives on inside Makita. That first saw was the Dolmar Model A, and calling it tough is almost an understatement. It was practically industrial machinery. It produced a genuinely powerful 8 horsepower, and it weighed a staggering 128 pounds, around 58 kilograms. This was not a saw one person could lift and swing. It was a two-man beast, hauled into the forest and wrestled through logs by a pair of operators working together. Lerp received a German patent for his invention in 1928, and the Model A stayed in production for roughly 4 or 5 years. Why does a 128-pound antique belong at number 2 on a toughest saws list? Because toughness isn't only about surviving abuse, it's about being built like nothing else and doing a job nothing else could do. These early saws were assembled from heavy cast iron and steel, over-engineered by necessity in an age before lightweight alloys. They revolutionized an industry that had run on axes and two-man cross-cut handsaws for centuries, turning days of exhausting labor into hours. Every single chainsaw on this list Every Stihl, every Husqvarna, every McCulloch traces its lineage back to machines like the Model A. It's the granddaddy of them all, the anvil-heavy pioneer that proved a gasoline engine could tame a forest. 90-plus years later, surviving examples still turn up, still built like tanks. Respect where it's due. This is where it all began. Number 1. Stihl 090. And here it is, the saw that ends the argument. The number 1 spot goes to the almighty Stihl 090. A machine so powerful, so overbuilt, and so legendary that loggers and collectors still hunt one down half a century after it was made. If chainsaws had a Hall of Fame with a single statue out front, this would be it. The 090's headline number is simply jaw-dropping. It carries a 137cc single-cylinder engine, the largest displacement of any Stihl chainsaw ever built, and one of the biggest single-cylinder production saws in history. Descended from Stihl's famous Contra lineage of the 1960s, the 090 was produced roughly from the late 1960s into the mid-1980s, and it earned nicknames like the Contra and the Lightning for its brute, unstoppable force. But here's the thing that makes the 090 special, and why enthusiasts still speak of it in near-mythical terms. It was never about high RPM. It was about torque. The 090 was built in an era when engines turned slower and cutting was driven by low-end lugging power, and its 137cc engine behaves less like a modern racing saw and more like a tractor. A slow, relentless, unstoppable thump that can pull a 60-inch bar through the hardest tropical hardwoods without ever bogging down. Modern emissions-friendly engines struggle to replicate that kind of low-end grunt, which is exactly why the 090 became a legend for chainsaw milling and remained a favorite for decades. It produced somewhere around 8 horsepower. The exact figure varies by source and era, and it was a heavy physical machine to run all day, tipping past 25 pounds before you even bolt on a bar. This was a saw for felling the true giants, processing storm-wrecked timber and industrial land clearing back when raw displacement was king. The 090 has since been officially succeeded by the modern MS-880 and MS-881, saws with better power-to-weight ratios and cleaner engines. But the 090 still holds the crown for sheer displacement, and nothing that came after has quite matched its mythical status. It's the torque monster, the displacement king, the saw people cross the world to buy. For raw, relentless, tree-flattening toughness, the Stihl 090 is the greatest of them all. These 10 saws prove that toughest means something different every time. Sometimes it's raw power, sometimes it's decades of survival, and sometimes it's just being the machine that started it all. So which one would you want in your hands? Drop your pick in the comments, and if you argued out loud at any point in this video, you already know what to do with that like button. See you in the next one.